And here we go again. More Buckeye content for you on the Bleacher Report app. I am Chris Drew from Menace to Sports. That's my guy Ron from Best Damn Media. Ron, what is good on this fine Thursday evening for you, my brother?
Man, it is a great day. News has come down that Michigan is no longer fighting
Yeah.
Harbaugh suspension. So it looks like Jim Harbaugh will be suspended for the game. So all things are well. Like I said on here earlier, every time something bad happens to Michigan, I'm having a good day. So, man, it is a good day. And I'm glad to be back on Bleacher Report. So all things are going great.
Yeah, and we're here to talk about what I'm interested in terms of coaching wise, kind of the development and growth of Ryan Day. But obviously, we're not going to ignore the news that just came down. So, for just real quick, we'll spend a couple minutes on it. I think this may be the last we hear about it, at least till after the season, because before there was all this talk about Michigan lawyers, they're going to scare the Big Ten. He's going to be able to coach in the game, going to be able to get his get back. And then, boom, came out today. Michigan no longer wants to fight this. They're just falling in line with the conference wants, and then the NCAA will take care of the rest, I believe, is how I read it.
Yeah, it seems like the Big Ten wanted to levy a punishment just as a stay until the NCAA was able to finish their investigation. It seems like they have enough evidence that they're okay to rule on Harbaugh being suspended and then let the rest of the NCAA investigation play out. And it seems like that's what the Big Ten is looking to do here.
Yeah, definitely need a docu-series from this. I mean, from whoever, but this has been kind of one of the more interesting, intriguing runs, at least I've seen in terms of scandal and controversy, just day after day after day. I mean, for one day, it's, Michigan versus everybody. The next day, you're America's team. I don't know if you know, but you can't have it both ways. So just wild times, Ron. And I think, Harbaugh being suspended is cool, whatever. It's kind of the best of both worlds for the Big Ten. It looks like they did something. But then additionally, like, it's not so much of a loss considering on game day, Harbaugh doesn't really have much on his plate.
Exactly. I thought it was more than fair of a punishment. Harbaugh's allowed to coach during the week. He's going to be allowed to game plan. He's going to be able to talk to his assistants. And then, like you said, he doesn't call plays on Saturday. So while it is a loss to obviously lose your head coach on game day, I thought it was a fair punishment from the evidence that has come out so far.
Facts. So you know who didn't lose their head coach and has never had their head coach suspended his entire career? Mr. Ryan Day hasn't, and he will be coaching in the game. And honestly, this is a huge year for him because this is kind of his sixth season or fifth season, if you want to call it that. So, depending on how you feel about the 2018 year in those three games, but Ryan Day, really young in his coaching career, and I think a lot of people think that it was gifted to him and that this program is Urban's program and that no way you can fail with it, this, that, and the third. But we've seen guys get legendary programs handed to them and absolutely crash them. I mean, Mark Hilfrich was at Oregon after Chip Kelly. They made a natty. And then when's the last time you heard of Mark Hilfrich? You haven't, because the whole thing fell off the rails when it was on him to bring his best players in. So for Ryan, at least, I'm ready to talk about it because I think he's got a good enough resume to this point where we can say, okay, he's not just riding Urban Meyer's coattail. At the same time, he's hitting a trajectory where he could be one of the greats. We just don't know. And what are we, a couple years in, and we're starting to see kind of him grow as a coach.
Absolutely. The evolution of Ryan Day has been fun to watch. And I think this episode is really going to dive into the narrative of Born on Third Base because Ryan Day has done, and shout out to our guy Mike, who does the show Buckeye BS with us every week. He's stood on the argument that Ryan Day has leveled up Ohio State since Urban Meyer has left. And I feel like a lot of people like to forget about some of the bad losses that Urban had as a coach and some of the blunders that he had, some misfires as far as coaching hires. And I feel like Ryan Day is learning on the job at a huge program and also progressing and getting better every year.
College football is so delicate. Ohio State was on the brink of a Dabo Swinney Clemson level slide. The game was going to pass them by. They had just lost 31-0 in a game they were favored in to Clemson. Usually that cripples everybody, even the really great programs, because we haven't seen Nick Saban lose like that. Guys don't lose like that. And in the airport on the way back from that playoff game, Urban Meyer made the call to hire Ryan Day, who he had hired once before back in his days at Florida. From then on out, Ryan Day made sure that college football didn't pass up Urban Meyer And honestly, Ryan Day is a big part of the reason that Urban Meyer didn't go out like Jimbo Fisher.
Absolutely. Urban Meyer was able to identify the weaknesses that they had on offense and reach out to an offensive mind that he had known from his past and bring him in and really go from. I always say I will forever be thankful for Ryan Day, regardless of how his head coaching tenure ends at Ohio State, because he brought us out of the dark years of QB power. And I will forever be thankful for that. And we're going to get into this offensive evolution that Ryan Day has started at Ohio State, because the level up on offense since Ryan Day has got to Ohio State has been remarkable.
And it hasn't always been one way. Like, you look at other guys and kind of the Lincoln Riley offense has always been the Lincoln Riley offense. It's a lot of run around, a lot of that triple option stuff, basically just modern day futuristic triple option, if I'm being honest, and paired him with some hero ball. Ryan Day came in. Dwayne Haskins was his guy, was the first quarterback that he loved and first pro style quarterback he had a chance to work with. That Dwayne Haskins offense is so different than the Justin Fields offense, so different even from the CJ Stroud offense, and even more different than the Kyle McCord offense. When Ryan Day got here and when he started kind of really putting his feet and fingers in this offense, it was Dwayne Haskins. A lot of the crossers, the mesh concepts, that's his bread and butter. But a lot of the jet sweep stuff and a lot of the quick game was kind of his staple there, at least when he started calling plays in 2018.
Yeah, KJ Hill led that team in receptions from the slot. That seemed like those mesh concepts were huge for Dwayne. He goes and breaks the Big Ten single season passing touchdown record that season, breaks Drew Brees' record. And then the following season, he follows it up with a 2,000-yard rusher.
Yeah, which is like total opposite. I mean, the 2018 team, one of the issues they had was they struggled in short yardage and struggled in the run game. And Dwayne Haskins kind of to help that, they used a lot of the jet sweeps, and Paris Campbell became a 1,000-yard rusher. Then in 2019, which I think is Ryan Day's best team, but we'll talk about that in a sec, it was about having a 2,000-yard rusher in J.K. Dobbins and bringing in Justin Fields, who was a Ryan Day go-get, and really turning this offense into kind of like the Thanos stones. Like, it was an offense that could kill you anyway. I mean, and just a drastic change. And a lot of the issues they struggled with in 2018 were not an issue at all in 19.
Yeah, and then you saw the transition of Justin Fields and that running offense. Trey Sermon joins the team the following year, and then you see Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson start to introduce themselves to the world, and then that rolls into the CJ Stroud Zone 6 explosion. And now CJ Stroud had two 1,000-yard receivers in a single season and almost had 3. And now we're currently watching the Kyle McCord era at Ohio State, where it's the Kyle and Marv show, where Marv is the leading receiver. Travion Henderson is the featured back. And just the evolution of Ryan Day's offense and his willingness to adapt to his personnel every year is a testament to the great coach that he is, because we've seen coaches like Jimbo Fisher, who's about to get paid $76 million to play the new Call of Duty because he refused to change his offensive schemes. So to see a coach like Ryan Day continue to learn and continue to grow, especially even with the success that he's had a leading passing touchdown quarterback. He's had running back lead the league in rushing. He's had 2 1,000-yard receivers in the season. He's done it every way possible, and he's shown that he can do it with any type of personnel.
Yeah, which is why, to me, he's the best play caller in America. Like, I think that's how good he is at offensive scheme. I mean, bro, like, when you look at it, 2018 was like death by 1,000 cuts. 2019 was just haymakers. Like, we're going to rip off big chunks on the ground, or we're going to go deep every single time. And then, 2021, that was CJ Stroud team. That was such a pro sophisticated offense with a lot of layered throws in there. So you got to see 3 different styles of the offense based on what the quarterback thrived in. And that is so important. And it makes you feel good, because this year, early in the year, us fans, me, expected Kyle McCord to be CJ at least esque in some capacity. And it was quickly realized he can't play like that. So what are we going to do? We are going to give him the easy access throws, the easy throws, the rhythm throws, and then we're going to really grind in the run game. So it's been really incredible to watch. I know this offense has not been as high flying as the other ones, but Ryan Day continues to prove to us that no matter how you do it, no matter how he has to do it, he'll be able to get a quarterback in there, at least to have the offense right around that 30 points a game.
And even in this season, you saw Kyle come out and struggle early, and now Travion Henderson is much more featured in the offense. The run game has become much more important, and you see Travion getting involved in the pass game. They're finding ways to make Kyle comfortable, get the ball to the checkdowns to the running backs and the tight ends. So, I mean, I think this is the first year you've ever seen a tight end featured this much because Kyle is so comfortable with Cade Stover, and that's something that we haven't seen in years past. Ryan Day has promised every starting tight end since he's been here that they're going to break the single season reception record, and it took Farmer Gronk, who came here as a tight end linebacker slash defensive end, and he turns out to be one of the leading receptions at Ohio State at tight end.
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, this offense is real tight end heavy and real X heavy. I mean, a lot of times like the Ryan Day offenses are really like centered around the slot guys. But Ryan Day looks around and like sees teams win at multiple levels. Like, how can we win games? And I believe that he sees a way to win games with this style of football. And clearly it's working because Ohio State is undefeated and the number 2 team in the country. So there's a belief there in Ryan Day continuing to adapt and also like scheming guys open this year at a higher clip than I had seen. I mean, Marv has been so wide open so often, and it's been a blast to watch that. It really helps the quarterback. So for me, at least, like watching Ryan Day grow year in and year out really makes me feel good about this particular team, because now it's like layers and layers of calling big time games. Now, the other side of the ball, the defense, brother. The defense has been what's really, really hurt Ryan Day here since he got to Ohio State. In 2019, Jeff Hafley came in. That was his first DC. They got rid of Greg Schiano, and I'm gonna tell my grandkids, bro, about Jeff Hafley's defense.
He might get a tree in Buckeye Grove because Buckeye fans just love him that much. You talk about Jeff Hafley. I've never heard that name said in front of Buckeye fans and it not bring a smile to everyone's face. They love him.
That is a fact. That's a fact. I mean, what Jeff Hafley was able to do when the 2018 defense was really the reason that Ohio State didn't win a national title. And then with the same personnel for him to come in, and all of a sudden you have draft pick after draft pick. To make 3 first rounders on the defense alone. I mean, number 1 in every major statistical category. Like, you're talking about a guy who shut it down. And he was almost too good. Like, he was too good. He was so good that 1 year of being a DC, his first year ever calling a defense, someone called and said, "We want you to be the head coach." That's how good Jeff Hafley was. Breaks my heart.
I know we're rooting for the Fighting Jeff Hafleys every Saturday at Boston College, but Ryan Day with his assistants, he usually likes to get a minimum of 2 years out of them, and I feel like that really threw a wrench in his plans, and that's why we saw the next coaching hire in Kerry Combs coming in and replacing Jeff Hafley.
Mm-hmm. Kerry Combs got hired away from Tennessee, and this was the first time Ryan Day couldn't get his number 1 option, because clearly his number 1 option was Jeff Hafley. Went to go get Kerry Combs from the NFL. The belief was, okay, he's in the NFL. He's done the studying that Jeff Hafley talked about. He's good, but I want him to run a cover 3, right? I want him to run the Jeff Hafley defense, and that's not what Kerry was. And Kerry was never a guy that called plays. So Kerry's experience was painful, Ron.
And to Kerry's credit, he got hired into that position with Ryan Day's expectation that you're going to run the same defense as Jeff Hafley. I'm going to tell you the defense that I want you to run. And he had never called plays as a defensive coordinator. He takes over the job, struggles in year 1, and then by game 2 of his second season, he loses his play calling duties to the future defensive coordinator at Memphis, Matt Barnes.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to root for Matt Barnes so much. Like, bro, I wanted to, dog. And like, I talked myself into extreme levels of cope. Like, oh, this defense is just good. Like, Matt Barnes is seeing it. And then, boom, you get handed Ryan Day's first loss against Michigan. It's like, this defense is buns. Like we put a Band-Aid over someone who was internally bleeding. Like, that's what the defense was.
And it wasn't just a loss to Michigan. Michigan beat us like the way we beat Rutgers. Like, They did us dirty. They pushed us around. Our defense looked soft. I mean, we couldn't stop a counter to save our life that year. I mean, so much so that it felt like teams were running the exact same counter that Oregon had so much success on us with the entire season. I mean, it's week 12 and people are still running a play that we couldn't stop in week 2.
Yeah, and honestly, like I always believe that ruined everything, right? Like the reason all we ran was stretch had to be because in practice we couldn't stop stretch because that stretch run was the only run that gashed us the entire year. Like that's really what it was. Like our defense was so bad and we tucked ourselves into, look, when you play an elite offense every day in practice, it's easy to be like, okay, like, yeah, CJ Stroud's doing that, but no one else is going to be doing that against us. And then everybody does it against you. Everybody. No matter who you line up, they were all going crazy. So it was really frustrating to watch, but it did lead to, I think, what was the most important single hire of Ryan Day's entire career.
Yeah, the hiring of Jim Knowles, the new defensive coordinator at Ohio State in year 2 now, with the defense absolutely rolling. And it was a giant shift in philosophy from Ryan Day, because when he hired Jim Knowles, he said, I am hiring a head coach of the defense. He wanted to completely remove his hands from that defense because he was so involved with that defense in the prior years because of the struggles that he had, and it took away from his ability to prep for play calling and just be an overall CEO of the program. Jim Knowles has come in and completely taken over that defense and has elevated that staff.
Yeah, no, it's been really incredible to watch. Last year had its ups and downs, but last year was markedly better than the year before that. It felt like, though, last year Jim Knowles maybe relied on the blitz a little bit too much, and maybe he could afford to because he knew the offense was so elite on the back end. But this year, I think Jim Knowles has gone through a complete philosophy change, because it doesn't have to be about hitting the home runs. It's got to be about keeping guys behind the chains and making sure our guys can play fast, because Ohio State will have better athletes than 99.9% of opponents they play, period.
Right.
That's what it looked like.
And you saw a big transformation on this defensive staff, and I think that's a credit to Ryan Day. A criticism that you hear of Lincoln Riley a ton is his unwillingness to change, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Not only did Ryan Day bring in a new defensive coordinator, he completely leveled up his secondary coaching, adding guys like Perry Eliano and Tim Walton. I just wanted to get your thoughts on these two additions. Perry Eliano coming off a great season coaching Sauce Gardner at Cincinnati. Tim Walton, repeatedly stated by Jalen Ramsey as his favorite DB coach of all time. The Buckeyes go out and get both of these guys. And we have talked about this all offseason and into the season, the return of BIA. And these two guys are completely responsible for the level up that we've seen from the secondary at Ohio State.
Yeah, bro, these two dudes did it themselves. And like last year, I was a little bit concerned about it. Last year, you couldn't quite feel the presence. This year, you feel it in a major, major way, bro. Like the way Tim Walton's corners are playing so physical and really playing like NFL guys and being held to an NFL standard is massive. Perry Eliano working with everybody. I mean, the safeties have been so good in coverage. And again, we have a group of DBs that are so physical, that are playmakers and are ball hawks. And ever since 19, we've had maybe one of those three traits each and every year. Haven't ever had all three. Now you got all three with the personnel lining, and those two upping their game. All they do is make Jim Knowles better and make this defense even crisper. And the level of confidence I have in this defensive back room is to the point where no wide receiver core strikes fear in my heart. Only one quarterback strikes fear in my heart. No wide receiver core. And the only quarterback that does is Jaden Daniels, and we won't get to play him. So yeah. I'm thrilled with the DBs, and really BIA is back. It is best in America. I mean, Denzel Burke will be the first corner drafted in this draft. Yes, stamp it. And Igbinosun is going to be a first or second rounder next year. Yes, stamp it. And then the guy that's better than all of them, Jermaine Matthews, he's also one of them ones. And it just feels like your Marshawn Lattimore, your Garyon Conley, like your Denzel Ward. It feels like we're on that level run. And yes, I said it.
Put it on the record.
Put it on the record. Put it on wax, bro. I'm telling you, those are the ones. And I didn't even talk about Jordan Hancock, who's also one of them ones. And I just don't know a position that he's going to play at the next level. So
yeah, I mean, he may be a safety. He may stay another year and try to get more reps outside. But I don't know if he's going to get it with some of the guys that we have. He may just go and be a slot corner in the NFL. But he's been absolutely balling. I had my questions about him being a draft pick this year, but I think he's all but answered all of those questions. I think Jordan Hancock will be putting his name in the draft after this season and may end up playing himself into potentially a day 2 pick.
Bro, he's going to he clocked in at over 20 miles per hour on his pick 6, bro. Like, he's going to run really well. He's also a guy that will fit up and hit a gap That's super rare amongst DBs. And all it's going to take is Tim Walton. Hey, he reminds me a little bit of Jalen Ramsey. And someone's going to jump. Someone's going to jump because that's the kind of weight that Tim Walton holds. And honestly, the way Hancock's playing is out of his mind physicality-wise. And it brings me to the point. Is this the most balanced team Ryan Day's ever had?
Absolutely. I feel like there's been defensive questions on every Ryan Day team except sorry.
19.
Except for 19. I started to get ahead of myself. I was going to say absolutely, but I think 2019 is the most balanced team. I think just because their offense was that much better, and I feel like their defense, that the 2019 defense was just as good as this season, so I'd have to lean with 2019.
Yep, that's where I'm at too. But since 19,
since 19,
with all of his own players, because I know that's something that people love to talk about. This is the most balanced team, and it's interesting because this is the closest to an NFL-built team that he's been in a long time. Like, this isn't – look, this team is not, okay, we're going to put the entire game on Kyle McCord's shoulders. It's no. Kyle McCord's going to do his job at a high level, and even if he doesn't, it's okay because the wide receivers are going to do their job at a high level, the defense is going to do their job at a high level, and the running game is going to do their job at a high level. This feels like a really solidly built, not as fun to watch train. And I'm not sure who can stop them from coming down that track. I mean, this team, I know they get all the slander for the way they've won, but all they've done this year is won the same way that Georgia has won last year and the year before that, right?
Absolutely.
Like with dogfights. I mean, Georgia was in a dogfight with Kentucky and Missouri last year, but it was okay because they just kept it going and they were so solidly built that nothing was going to get. They had no glaring weakness. And this
was
is
it Akron or Kent State that took them into deep water as well?
Kent State took them into the deepest water. The Fighting Steve Harveys had them in a blender, bro.
The Fighting Steve Harveys is crazy.
Yeah, I'm just saying. They got up there, Family Feud in the end zone. Like those teams took them in the deep waters. But that Georgia team, like this Ohio State team, has no major flaw. There's no fish. Last year's Ohio State team, they had fish everywhere. It was a whole pond. We had fish in the DB room. We had fish on the O line. Like there was fish everywhere. Even against, I mean, even 2020 there was fish. His name was Tough Borland. He had to guard Devontae Smith on a cross and go or whatever that was. So, this is such a balanced team, and I know it hasn't been the prettiest, hasn't been the sexiest, but this team is built like a modern day college football national champion. The issue is there's another team down there in Athens. They're also built like that, and they're playing really, really good ball at the right time.
You brought up the slander that this defense has received. Ryan Day has received a ton of slander over the course of his time at Ohio State, and one of the reasons and criticisms of his teams has been that they were soft. And we have seen the intensity of Ryan Day ratchet up the past season a ton. And I just want to talk to you about that. It seems like Ryan Day has really learned from the criticism that he's received coming out of the first Michigan loss. He seemed to not think it was that big of a deal. He understood the loss in the rivalry, but it was kind of just one loss type of approach. And then after that second loss, he could feel that heat under his seat and how unhappy the fans in Columbus were. And you've seen a different type of energy from Ryan Day since that Georgia game, to the point that he's trying to fight Lou Holtz in the post-game press conferences.
Yeah, I mean, shoot. I'm all for fighting an old man. Shout out to Ryan Day. That was an incredible moment. Ryan Day went from being a head ball coach to understanding that every time he is out there, he is coaching for his legacy. Like every loss you take as the Ohio State head coach is a black eye. This isn't the NBA or the NFL where you can afford to lose one or two a year. And for him, a guy that came from the NFL, you would think, okay, like, yeah, guys, just one loss. The season's not over. At Ohio State, every loss is a black eye. At Ohio State, every time you lose a game, it's like squirting a little bit of ketchup on your white shirt. You want to have the cleanest shirt you can when you walk out of there, and he gets it. And how do you keep the ketchup off your shirt? You scream at anybody who walks near you with a hot dog. And it does certainly feel like Ryan Day is coaching with the most urgency I've ever seen him coach. And we saw it for a glimpse in 2020 Clemson. And honestly, that's because Dabo is a dweeb and like to poke the bear. Now it feels like he's coaching like this against everybody. We got him screaming at guys versus Maryland, versus Purdue, versus teams that we haven't seen that before. So no longer is about provoking him. It's someone walked in, the thermostat on his chest, turned it up to 100 degrees, and left the house. The boiler's going, and he's definitely, this is definitely the most excited version. And it reminds me of the Nick Sabans of the world, melting down up 21 against LSU. The Kirby Smarts of the world, melting down up 3 scores in a game that's clearly decided. That kind of intensity and urgency resonates within the entire program at this point.
It absolutely seems like Ryan Day is never satisfied with this team and always sees that they can get better. Ryan Day is continuing to evolve, but we wanted to compare him to another coach that is ascending and continuing to dominate the sport through his first 5 years. Ryan Day and Kirby Smart have had a very similar start to their careers, and we wanted to compare them side by side before we get out of here because it seems like Ryan Day is on a very similar trajectory to that of Kirby Smart.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Both of them were golden boys for legendary head coaches. Obviously, Nick Saban never wants to retire. He wants to do this thing till it's all over. And so Kirby had to go elsewhere. And it's really interesting kind of the comparison at the first 5 years. 55 and 56 for Ryan Day's first 5 years, 52 and 14 for Kirby Smart's. I mean, you got 3 playoff appearances versus one playoff win for both of them. And it's looking so close. And people forget Kirby Smart didn't win a title till year 6. Well, that's where we are right now with Ryan.
It feels like this is the year. We've talked about SNS all off season, sneaky natty season. You look at the success that Ryan Day has been able to have with lesser talent. You see the average class rankings, 5.8 for Ohio State, 2.5 for Kirby. A lot of people assume Ryan Day, born on third base, inherited a ton of talent. Ryan Day had to clean up a ton of the sloppiness of Urban getting comfortable in his later years at Ohio State. It was not a fully functioning Ferrari. Mm-hmm. He had a leak in his tire. He had to get some things fixed. And you see the success that he's having. And it just feels like with the momentum this team has had towards the end of the season, this could be the year that Ryan Day does get it done.
Yeah, no, it certainly feels that way. And it just feels so similar to the feelings about Kirby Smart. I mean, Kirby Smart's humps were about winning the big game. Obviously, Kirby Smart's a defensive guy, and the issue for so long was they couldn't figure things out on offense. They had Jake Fromm there. For Ryan Day, things have always been figured out on offense. It was about figuring things out on defense. They recruit at a similar clip. I mean, honestly, the class average number, 5.8 and 2.5, solely has to do with the fact that when Ryan Day took over, they had the 14th highest class. Like that's the reason that number is so high. Really, if you take that year out, it's right there in the top 3 to 5 as well. So,
yeah, the only difference you really see as far as the recruiting differences is that first year, as you mentioned with Ryan Day with the 14 class, and Kirby does have 2 number 1 classes during his tenure during the first 5 years.
Yeah, Kirby does, and hopefully Ryan can get one at some point. I know it's not the end all be all, but class size really contributes into that. This year, it is interesting seeing them being 1 and 2 up at the board. But these are the 2 young, bright coaches in the sport. One has ascended and has kind of asserted himself as a dominant force. The other one is scratching and clawing, trying to get there, and he's got to get over the hump against Michigan. That's it. Like, the first test is in 2 weeks. You've studied, you've made the adjustment, you stayed up all night, you crammed for the test. Can you pass it?
It's not the first test. It's the final exam. We went through initial exams. We did our midterm at Penn State, and we're here for our final exam. And I can't believe we're already here at the end of the season. We are 9 days away from the game, and we talk every time we get on here about valuing wins on Saturday and appreciating college football season because it flies by so fast. And if the Buckeyes were to get knocked off on the 25th, it seems like that would nearly end the Buckeye season. No conference championship in a bowl game that'll turn into a ton of questions in Columbus. I can't believe we're already here at the end of the season. 2 games, 1 game until the team up north.
Bro, if we lose to Michigan, the bowl game turns into, okay, this is Devin Brown's team. You don't get to lose to Michigan if you're at Ohio State. Just want to throw that out there. Second of all, I think Ohio State beats Michigan by double digits this year.
On the record.
Put it on the record. I'm putting it on wax. Like Michigan strikes exactly 0 fear in my heart, and maybe that'll come back to bite me. Maybe it won't. And also, I've completely forgiven Ryan Day for both Ohio State losses to Michigan because turns out they was cheating the whole time.
Yeah, that's our final poll that we have for the viewers. Does the Michigan scandal change your feelings about Ryan Day's record against Michigan? And it seems with the information that's coming to light, Harbaugh's not going to be coaching in the game on the 25th. It seems like we may have to give Ryan Day a pass for those losses because it seems like the NCAA believes that Michigan was cheating. Chris Drew, let the people know where they could find you before we get out of here.
You can find me every weekday on the Menace of Sports podcast, talking all things college football, all around the Big Ten landscape. And then catch me here with Ron every now and again on the Bleacher Report app, talking Ohio State.
Nice dance skills. I didn't know that we didn't have that in our show notes. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at 2_TEES. You can find me on the Best Damn Media YouTube Monday through Friday for the Buckeye Roast at 8 a.m. You can find me and Chris Drew Saturday mornings for the college football pregame show on the Best Damn Media YouTube at 10 a.m. And, of course, the flagship Buckeye BS at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Catch me and Chris Drew here every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays for instant reactions after the game here on Bleacher Report. Big thank you to Bleacher Report for having us. Go Bucks and OH.
I-O.